couple of things. First of all, I want to thank everyone that's been watching this channel, the Richard Inman channel, but also ask everyone, if you can, dive across to the Counter Media channel. I'll put the link in the description below. Like and subscribe to this channel, but go across to the other one, because I've got big plans for the other one. It's going to be very, very different, I think, to anything else that's going on in the movement. It's going to be positive, it's going to be faith-based, it's going to be focused on all the good things that we can do and all the good things that are going on. And I'm going to try as much as possible to avoid all the sort of negative stuff. Not that I'm not burying my head in the sand. Anybody knows me. I've been facing all this stuff head on for the past, 8 years or whatever it is. But I think there's a time comes when we've got to change from looking at everything, all the negatives that are going on, and getting worried about it, and saying, what can we do? What is great about the United Kingdom? What's great about our faith? What's great about us? And how we can put some positivity into what we're doing. Because again, there's too much negative stuff going on. We know what's happening in the country. I've said this time and time again. What we need to look for are solutions, and we need to find answers to the questions that everybody's answered. What I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna do something a bit different. I was in church this morning, and the pastor spoke on some passages that have been very, very challenging to me, but also very, very important to me over the past few weeks and months. Anybody that's been paying attention to what's been happening, I've been the target of a hate campaign from various different sources, but you can deal with that, or I can deal with that. But these verses really spoke to me, and I hope they speak to other people as well when I read them. It's Romans, the book of Romans, which is in the New Testament. It's chapter 12 and verses 14. I think I'll read it to the end of the chapter. Bless them which persecute you. Bless and curse not. Rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep. Be of the same mind one to another. Mind not high things, but condescend to men of low estate. Be not wise in your own conceits. Recompense to no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of men. This is the important verse here, I think. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing, thou shalt heap thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. I think it says hot coals in another translation. Coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. And in our movement at the minute, there's a lot of hit piece videos, and they're not really from major figures in the movement, but they're from sort of voices that are bouncing about, and it'd be very easy to respond to every single one of them and get very angry and very bent out of shape. But I think if we read what the Bible tells us to do when these sort of things happen, it's leave it to God. And I had a very serious situation a few weeks ago, and I've never been so angry and filled with rage in my life as a result of what somebody had done to me. But I felt very clearly that God was pointing to me verses like this. There's verses like this in the Old and New Testament right the way through, where God says, I'm in control, I'll deal with it, I'll take care of the people that are fighting against you. You just keep what you're doing, like Jesus did, set his face like flint to go to Jerusalem. You set your face like flint. A friend of mine used to say that to me all the time, Richard, set your face like flint. Keep going on the path that you've been called to go on. And I think this path that I'm travelling down, it's come out of a place of pain and suffering. Some of it self-inflicted. In fact, a lot of it self-inflicted. But getting to know who I am and what I can do to change myself and to hopefully change people's mindsets on Christianity, on what's going to make a difference in the country, and on the royal law, which is love God and love your neighbour. Not love yourself. He says love your neighbour as yourself, so it takes for granted that you're going to love yourself. But love God and love everybody else. That's the commandment. That fulfills the law and the prophets. And I could go on an all-out onslaught. I could name people and shame people and say this and that and the other about people. But the reality is that God does want us to turn the other cheek. God does want us to forgive. It's extremely difficult, especially when people have deliberately and are continually deliberately trying to slander and destroy me and people close to me, and by default when they're attacking me, they're attacking my family. But the reality is, what did God say in that word? If it is possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Now, does that mean we roll over and we let our country get invaded by people who want to bring in false ideology, want to bring in terrible things? If the Russians invaded us tomorrow, which they're not going to do, but if the Russians invade us tomorrow by some quirk of history, would I be suggesting that we all roll over and live peacefully with them? No. You fight for your homeland. I served in the military. I'm not a pacifist. I don't believe the Bible teaches pacifism anywhere. But what it does, it teaches restraint and it teaches love. And there's a difference. To defend your country, sometimes you have to take action. And that action has to be military action. And that's whether it's a horde of extremists that are trying to take over the country from whatever side of the argument or the debate, or whether it's a foreign invader. Either way, we should stand for our country and stand up for what's right. And the Bible's very clear that the state has a duty to bear the sword. It has a duty to protect its people. It says somewhere in the book of Romans, don't ask me where, but it's in there. So from my point of view, what I'm trying to say is our movement needs to stand together and work together. All the backbiting, all the nastiness needs to stop. If I've got something to say to someone, I'm not going to do a video naming and shaming people. I'll pick up the phone or I'll send them a message on WhatsApp, whatever it is. If I think somebody's been out of order, I'll let them know. I'll try not to be, I'll try to do it as graciously as I possibly can. Sometimes I'm not very good at that. Hands up, I've got a temper. But the reality is that all this megaphone diplomacy, all this stuff, death by social media, is so damaging, so dangerous. And it's having the exact opposite effect to what people think it's achieving. If you're kind of like me, a Tommy supporter, friend of Tommy, sometimes when you think you're defending Tommy, you're actually causing him problems by basically just bringing his name or his brand into your arguments. That's not right. That's not right at all. And the people that are attacking Tommy, they don't know him. And unless you know someone, you walked a mile in his shoes, don't attack him. And I've said this before, I'll always stand by my friends. I'll stand by Tommy. I'll stand by Paul Thorpe. I'll stand by Danny. I'll stand by everybody else that stood by me. And those guys have stood by me. When I was going through my real trial, there's very few people stood with me. And I'm still going through a trial now. Still going through a very, very serious set of circumstances in my own life. But I know who my friends are, because I know who's had my back, and I know the people who've been against me. The people that are against me, as much as it is, I get really angry. I get explosively angry very, very quickly. But when I calm down and think about it, what's God saying for me to do there? It's saying, bless them, pray for them. What does he say? If your enemy's thirsty, give him a drink. If he's hungry, give him something to eat. That's what God commands us to do. Very difficult. It's impossible to do without God, without the Holy Spirit. It's impossible to do without God in your life helping you do that. And listen, I have made many mistakes. Many, many mistakes. I've failed God. I've failed everybody just about in my time on this planet. But that's the whole point of the Christian gospel. It's not for people that are righteous, because there ain't nobody righteous. If you think you're righteous, then you're deluding yourself and you're probably on your way to hell. But I think the Christian message is vitally important to our movement. I think it's something that we've got to push more. And this idea of forgiveness and bearing with each other and having compassion. One of the things I noticed when I was seeing a lot of this vitriol that flies about on the internet, nobody cares about the people they're hurting. There's no compassion. Nobody's looking at people's families and saying, well, how's that affecting his wife? How's that affecting his children? How's that affecting the people around him? When they're attacking Tommy, when they're attacking me, when they're attacking Paul Thorpe, nobody's thinking about that when they're attacking Danny. No, Danny suffered a great deal with the trial that he's been through recently. Tommy's suffering in prison. No, don't say you're doing stuff in Tommy's name when all you're doing is destroying and dividing the movement. It's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. It's hypocrisy. It's just not good. So look, I'm not going to labour this. There has been a lot of nonsense floating about. To me, it all has to stop. It's destructive. It's not doing anyone any good. It's stopping us doing what we need to do, which is come together to save the country. And again, how do we do that? I keep going back to it. Faith, family, flag. We get the faith right, we get the family right, we'll get the community right, we get the community right, people all working together, pulling together in one accord, you're going to actually have a breakthrough. If we don't do that, we're not going to have a breakthrough. And I'll be honest with you, anyone that's causing me any issues now, I just block them straight away. I don't want them being able to get into my inbox. I don't want to talk to them. They can say what they want about me, but I'm not going to interact with people that are negative and filled with poison. I just can't do that. So yeah, we've got to push on. Obviously, big event in September. That's going to take a lot of planning, a lot of effort, and a lot of resources. We've got to think a lot more about Tommy, and we've got to be in touch with Tommy. We've got to be encouraging Tommy. So if you haven't been emailing, I suggest if you get a chance, get an email across to Tommy. And we've got to keep going. We've got to keep going. We've got to make sure that we're just on this, and we're not stopping. And again, obviously, as you know, I'm not coming to England because I've got so much going on. So I'll be doing stuff from here in Northern Ireland. I'll be doing stuff on the streets of Northern Ireland. That was on Friday. I'll be doing another demo very soon in Belfast. We've got a lot going on. We've all got a lot going on. And I think the best way that we can do this is by not attacking and undermining each other, by helping each other. Whether you believe in this book or not, and I do believe in this book, so tell you what, when I deviate from this book, my life falls apart. And when I do what this book tells me to do, and I read this book, and I pray this book, and I get close to God, my life comes together. So that says all I need to know about Christianity and biblical Christianity. If you do it properly, it works. When you stop doing it, everything goes wrong. And that's all I can say. I mean, I'm not an apologist. I'm not a scholar. I'm not a super intelligent person, but I just know what's worked in my life and what's helped me. And I would implore everybody, come back to God. But do me a favor, if you watch right the way through to the end, like and subscribe. Please share the channel with somebody else. But please, 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 this is really important. Get across to Counter Media and sign up. Yes, there will be quite a lot of faith-based stuff in there, especially on a Sunday. I'll try and put something faith-based up every Sunday, same as on the Richard Inman channel every Sunday. As you know, this is something that I probably should have been doing 8 years ago, and but that's another story. The reality is, put God first, everything else falls into place. So go to Counter Media, just subscribe whatever we do on YouTube, and let's try and get that channel built up so it's something decent, because I want to build a community around that is very different to what anybody else is doing. I want to make it different. That's why I'm calling it Counter Media. It's going to be counter to what everybody else is doing, so it's not going to be all talking about all the bad things. I want to start talking about some of the good things and the positive stuff. See you all soon.